My talk title in this Love and Liberation series as we continue is Beloved Community Building, which ends up, I love titles. I love when I hit upon titles that have like multiple meanings, right? So beloved Community Building is very specifically speaking to the new member ceremony that we'll be engaging in a little while. We have new members joining our congregation today. And so we're building, our community is building, and of course we have a beloved community. But I also, the other piece of it, and I think the bigger piece of it is really about how we can move into a space of actually building the kind of beloved community that Dr. Martin Luther King certainly referenced in his work back in the 60s. And as I've been kind of thinking about what exactly is beloved community, because I think there are a lot of elements that get expressed at Unity on the North Shore in really powerful and beautiful ways. So as I'm going to talk a little bit about what my perceptions are of our community and how we are together and how beloved community kind of shows up among us. But I would love it if, as I'm speaking, if something occurs to you, you would enter that in the chat stream. So as you're thinking about how is it that, I'm part of this beloved community that's called Unity on the North Shore, and just include that quality or that observation in the chat stream so we can all kind of share it. I think it gets a sort of a collective understanding of kind of who we are. For me, I think what I appreciate the most is there is a depth and a maturity, I think, to how we show up as spiritual human beings at Unity on the North Shore. One of the things that I was most attracted to when I first took this job over 10 years ago, I can't believe that, was the diversity of the congregation. And mostly, I mean, sort of the racial diversity. We're a fairly small community, but in terms of percentages, we pretty much reflect the Evanston community around us. And I always thought that was so beautiful. In the first few years I was here, I was really committed to how do we take this beautiful energy that we have that is so kind of harmonious and collaborative and doesn't seem to, we don't seem to sort of be confronted with the kinds of conflict and difficulties and challenges that a lot of places that are working on sort of racial equity or racial equality run into. And so I was thinking, how do we emulate that? What is it that's special about how we do that? And the more I dived into it, it's sort of the more I had to look at the spaces in my own heart where I was still holding some of those preconceptions and some kind of obliviousness to privilege that were part of my journey, right? I had to do that work kind of on my own. And then I think it gave me a better understanding of how we show up here. And I think that's part of what we're doing together in spiritual community building, right? We have an understanding that, because early on, what I wanted to do was to go to the people of color in my life and in our congregation and say, and I want them to like tell me what I need to do to be able to create equality and equity. And it's only after a couple of years of doing that that I realized that it's not their job to tell me how to fix what my issues are. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like asking someone who is in an abusive relationship to fix the abuser, right? I'm sort of taking that to extreme, but essentially I found out that that's a piece of what I was bringing. And I think in this community, there is an understanding of the depth of the work that we need to be doing personally so that when we come together in community, it's a space where we really do support one another in ways that allow us to take the kinds of risks that let us live into a deeper truth, right? We're not projecting our stuff on each other because there's a depth of kind of spiritual growth and development within us and a spiritual maturity within us where we kind of get that we have deep work to do ourselves so that we can be in a community that is loving. And I don't know, you put something in the chat stream and let me know if I'm making that up in my head or if that's something that is experienced more broadly in our community together, because I'm really curious about, how we do kind of build on that and perpetuate that. I think part of the work that happens in terms of wanting to be builders of beloved community is that we recognize that each of us has our own, not only our own work to do, but our own contributions to make. And what's unique about the contribution that we make coming out of a unity perspective is that it really comes out of that, I think, the quality of love that is inherent in any kind of beloved community. Like love is a power, not love as an emotion or as a feeling, but love is a power that we bring to it. And a recognition that it's ours to bring that kind of love forth into our experience, into our relationships, into our life, and into our knowing. Um, and what's interesting, I think, as I look around culturally, what's happening is, and I've talked about the great polarization that we experience culturally and politically and nationally, and in that polarization, though, I think is that's where our work comes, right? To recognize in our own hearts where we're identifying us and them, or we're identifying right and wrong, or we're sort of making our own sort of polarization happen in our own experience. And I was reading the work of Pema Chödrön, and she does a beautiful job of sort of describing how that happens on subtler levels, right? So that as we really become in tune with how much our minds are busy judging and deciding and discerning and moving and separating, as we really begin to take stock of how much that's happening in our own experience, that's where the power is to begin to transform it. Right? And it happens in subtle, subtle ways. We might not even articulate it, but there might be something that flashes up in our minds where it's like, oh, there's a neighbor who's doing something that I'm kind of resentful for. And 3 years later, I can run into that neighbor, and my first impulse will arise out of that judgmental perception, that judgment that I had made 3 years ago, but it's still coloring how I'm showing up in that relationship. You know what I'm saying? So as we can become more aware of where those are happening in our own experience and let those go, we become a bigger kind of channel through which that kind of love can be brought to bear in the bigger pictures, right? So that we can then be channels through which we're working on our stuff and not projecting it on people that we might have maybe deeper disagreements with, people that really are sort of part of that polarization, and that we move out of being so polarized and into a space of coming out of love. See, I think what happens is very often we have a sense of caring, we have a sense of wanting this kind of love to be expressed fully in our lives, in our world, in our community. And yet, because we're coming at it out of that energy of polarization, it ultimately is an energy of fear. It ultimately is an energy that's going to exacerbate the separation that's happening, rather than bring forth the kind of connection that's really going to allow beloved community to flourish more fully. I'm going to share with you a quote from Michael Bernard Beckwith. This is out of his book, Spiritual Liberation. It's one of those that I've kind of been referring to throughout this series. He writes, what is required to begin shifting these external facts is maintaining a focus on individual change. That's kind of what I've been saying, right? Through our individual inner work, we discover that we have ample gifts to contribute to establishing an enlightened society. Okay, and this is the piece that I really want us to delve into next. We then become motivated to deliver these gifts in a mindset of love, not out of fear that the world needs saving, right? Because if we're believing that the world needs saving, then we're actually exacerbating the separation piece. Whereas if we're coming out of it from an understanding that this is a coming together, a harmonizing force that's happening out of the power of love, it's a completely different projection. Beckwith writes, we're not here to save the world, but to serve an emerging paradigm of love, connectedness, and generosity, and generosity of heart, right? So we're not here to save anything. We're not here to change anybody's mind. We're just here to be that expression of love that's going to uplift and sort of create a greater vibratory channel experience environment out of which that kind of transformation can help, can truly support. So one of the ways that we do that is because I know how easy it is to get caught up even now. I mean, I know there's been some relief from this as we've moved out from the contrast and the conflict that happens, that's inherent in kind of political elections, right? So we're beyond the election now, so that's quieted a little bit. But still, if we're looking at headlines, there's still an awful lot of energy that's grounded in that divisiveness. And what I would like us to do is to maybe begin to shift into a greater awareness of the places where beloved community is already being expressed, because it is powerful, but it doesn't make headlines. We don't see that stuff in the news as frequently. Um, but there are places where it's being expressed brilliantly on a lot of levels. And where I noticed it most was this last week. Louis Gossett Jr., who's an amazing kind of, I don't know, TV personality, documentary maker, producer, director, interviewer. His latest documentary is called The Black Church. And I'm just curious, how many have heard of it? Raise your hands. Yep. So and that's wonderful. I have so much to say about this, and I don't want to. I want to leave it for you all to track down. But one of the things that is not in the documentary, but that I'm sort of observing as we've experienced it, is, yeah, I saw someone. It's on PBS tonight. And see, this is the piece where I want you to recognize that it is available far more than just on PBS, right? It's now being streamed to YouTube. I think I saw that Prime TV has got Prime, Amazon Prime. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can stream it on Amazon. You can see clips of it in a whole lot of places, which I think is a reflection of this emergent energy that Beckwith is talking about, right? I can remember as I'm sitting there watching it, music is a huge, Black music as it's been adapted to different venues through the years, all the way from Africa as slaves were brought to this country, and on the shores of here, it had to be adapted so that they were able to, so that Black people and slaves were able to continue to connect with music in that powerful way that transforms. It's been adapted in ways all through. So, and there's a beautiful kind of historical drawing of that line, that through line that shows up now as even pop music. So that kind of energy is that kind of adaptive energy. We have a lot to learn from, right? There is so much about the Black experience that has been omitted from like quite historical record that as I was watching it, I thought I began to like feel embarrassed. Like I thought I was fairly well educated about American history. You know, I knew Civil War stuff, I knew Reconstruction stuff, I knew that things had happened there, but I was embarrassed and kind of feeling guilty about how little I knew about how much the progression that was made during and after the Civil War was really driven by Black leaders. And those weren't a part of my education. Someday I believe that that'll all be in the same curriculum, right? It won't have to be a separate documentary. But for now, what I would suggest is that seek out those places where we can increase our understanding about how other cultures inform us. And that documentary, The Black Church, is amazing and incredibly powerful. And so here's the thing that I want to sort of suggest. It also traces like where power is being expressed. True power, divine power, spiritual power has been expressed throughout this journey, right? And it has been a mighty force throughout American history as it rises out of the Black church. And that becomes really apparent in this documentary. And that's really apparent that we need that energy. We need that adaptability. We need that capacity to bring forth new avenues and new channels and new venues for that to express. And the model for that is already available to us in the Black experience. So that's a piece of it. But this power thing, what I also noticed is like, I also sat back and found that I was being a little bit critical because music is such a huge piece of this. I'm noticing that I had invested in some fancy speakers so that, you know, my movie experience when I'm sitting home on Netflix is optimum, right? But there's some technology there that that isn't being used except on a lot of commercials have it, and a lot of really expensive Netflix seems to be tapping into it. But Louis Gossett Jr., for whatever reason, didn't use that technology. So the music isn't as rich and wonderful for those of us who have that. And so I was sitting back there being kind of critical. Well, why didn't they, you know, Oprah was a part of this, Ford Foundation, they got money, they could have, I wonder why they didn't do that. And what I'm beginning to recognize is they didn't do that because they spent the money on distribution. They spent that money so that more of us will know about this, so that it can be featured on Amazon Prime, so that it can be featured on, as a Netflix stream or as a YouTube stream. That's where the money's going, right? And there is power that had to be sort of engaged to be able to create a greater awareness of this, right? So what I'm suggesting is that as we begin to look at how powerfully this energy that's drawing us into beloved community is already expressing, and begin to support that in more powerful ways, and begin to recognize that that is amazing. That's a mighty force that is being engaged to sort of increase an appreciation for how integral the Black experience is to the American experience, and how many lessons there are for all of us to take from that experience as we start to move it into fuller expression in our lives. Does that make sense? And it's not just this particular movie. There are other ways that we can begin to engage in the conversation for how we can create this beloved experience more fully. I'm going to put in the chat stream right now. You've probably seen my eyes moving all over. So here is, I'm participating in a webinar this coming week that's being hosted by the Parliament of World Religions. And it's a Chicago thing, How We Heal Together. You have to register in advance, but I think it's really going to be a powerful exploration of how we can continue to bring this beloved community energy into fuller expression in our local community here, right? So beyond I was going to say the walls of our community, but beyond our Zoom experience here, out into the community. And we have light to bring in those situations. Each of us, as Summer was saying, we are whole, we are complete, we are powerful, and we have a contribution to make. And I think as we become more willing and make ourselves more available to be that bright light, the brighter light than we've ever experienced in our lives, then the more this beloved community that we want to be expressed more broadly is going to come into fuller expression, right? So what I want to do now is sort of return back to the impetus for this talk, right? Beloved community building, and the 10 new members who are stepping into or increasing their commitment to this community and creating that kind of energy amongst ourselves. And so it's always, whenever we have a new member Sunday, it's a beautiful time when we're able to really kind of remind ourselves about the purpose and the gifts and the blessings that we receive as being part of a spiritual community, as well as to really commit ourselves to supporting those who are stepping into membership. And that's kind of what this ceremony is about. And so what I'd like to do is invite Candace Lucas, and I led the new member class. So it was a new member experience that we did all by Zoom this last time around. And so I've asked Candace to kind of set the stage for this ceremony that we're about to embark upon. So I'm going to invite Candace, if you would, to go ahead and start us off with this celebration of new members.
Hi, everyone. I'm Candace Lucas, if I haven't met you before. I'm a licensed Unity teacher here at Unity on the North Shore. And I'm really excited to introduce to you the 2 new members that this morning I was incredibly blessed to have an opportunity to be with them in the membership discernment class that we completed last week. And so this morning, I'm also very blessed to be able to help and join with you in celebrating them as they become new members here at Unity on the North Shore. If we were meeting in person, I would take this opportunity to invite all the members up to the platform to celebrate them. But obviously, that's not happening at the moment. So in order for us to feel a bit more connected in this Zoom world, I'm going to ask you guys to help me with a little bit of a Zoom experience. So first, what I'd like you to do is, if you can, switch to gallery mode, gallery view on your computer. If you're not already in gallery view, switch to gallery view so that you can see a full screen of folks here. And if you don't know where that is, in order to switch to gallery view, it's usually up in the upper right corner of your screen. And the view will allow you to toggle from the speaker view to gallery view. So once you've done that, now everyone except the new members, at this moment, if you could, turn your cameras off. Everyone except the new members. Go down to the bottom and turn your camera off. Stop video is another way to see the folks turning your cameras off. Okay. So if you've gotten your cameras turned off, now if you are a new member, I'd like you to turn your cameras on. So make sure that if you're a new member, your cameras are on. All good here? Okay. So if you're in gallery view, you should be able to see the new members on your screen. They should have all moved to the front, and you should be able to see them on screen now. It's not quite like being in church because I can see that some of us who have pictures, or those who have pictures, their pictures still show up on the screen. But you can see all these wonderful, amazing, beautiful faces of the new members who are joining us today. And what I'd like to do is to go through and speak each of the members' names. And when I say your name, if you would, wave so that each of our participants here will know that that's you and you are joining us in this community. So let's start off with Ann Baker. Can you raise your hand? Everybody see Ann? Okay. Next, David Baker. Right next to Ann. Fantastic. Again, if you're not a new member, turn your cameras off. Okay, Steve Benz. Hi, Steve. Great. Now, Alyssa Foster. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, it looks like Alyssa wasn't able to be with us this morning. She's still joining. She's just not able to be with us for the ceremony.
Okay. John Fry. There you are, John. Hey, John. Great to see these faces because I've been in their class with them. Agnes Laughlin. Hi, Agnes. Fantastic. Okay, Catherine Mathis. Kathy, great to see you. And Michael Nash. Hi, Mike. Okay, Jean Scott. Great. And last but not least, Terry Went. Hi, Terry. I hope you can all sense how precious these spiritual beings are. Their knowledge and their dedication to practice our principles is so very strong. They desire that deep connection to our spiritual center that we all have as well. Together with our fellow members, they recognize that we are co-creating the dynamic life of unity on the North Shore. We join with them together in supporting one another. We will take risks, we will lift each other up, and we will help one another live our deepest truth. So let's join in giving them a round of applause as we move into the next part of this acknowledgement and ceremony.
So the next piece is we're going to do a responsive reading. And this is really an acknowledgement by the broader congregation, the broader community, and sort of the commitment we make in support of these new members. And I would invite you also to consider that this is a commitment that you make for yourself as well. So it's kind of a round robin piece. So I'll share a statement and Reverend Christina will respond on behalf of the congregation. And I invite you all to make the words you hear a personal affirmation as well as a collective blessing. The Spirit of God is alive and active among us, calling us to a greater awareness of our creative power for good. We acknowledge that at all times, the one presence and one power that is God wishes to express in, as, and through our lives.
Beloved new members, we behold the goodness of God expressing as you.
Our essence being of God, we acknowledge that we are inherently good. Furthermore, we acknowledge that the deepest truth of being is that this same God essence is expressed in everyone, everywhere.
Beloveds, through the power of the divine In us, we see the divine in you.
Being co-creators with God, we know that we create reality through the thoughts that we hold in our minds and the feelings we hold in our hearts.
We behold the creative power for good that you are.
Through prayer and meditation, we align our hearts and minds with God. We affirm our oneness with God and with each other. We deny any and all separation from the source of our being and the illusion of separation from each other.
We behold and call forth the Christ in you.
God has placed within us all that we need to lead full and joyous lives.
Aligned with the infinite good, we boldly do all that ought to be done by us.
And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
New members, we hereby welcome you into active membership of Unity on the North Shore and charge you with the responsibility of serving this community with love, faith, and joy. We understand that this is no small undertaking, for to grow in spirit calls each of us beyond our everyday beliefs and asks us to live in faith. By doing so, we are abundantly blessed in every realm of our lives, and the way is made clear for others to discover the power of God in themselves.
I just want us to take a minute to just look at each other and to just breathe this in. This is an amazing moment for our new members and for us as a community that we are bringing in and having these beautiful souls join with us to be able to continue to lift up the unity message of love and of faith and of prayer and of hope. And I want us to recognize that, every soul is blessed. Everyone that we bring into this community, we are so grateful for, and so grateful that they have resonated with us and our message to join in our family. But I want us to recognize that the members that we are bringing in today are massive spiritual heavy hitters. I mean, they are. Each and every one of you are just such divine lights. And, most of you have been in Unity or in New Thought for a long time. So for you all to come into our community, I know that I'll speak on behalf of the staff and the board and the membership that we don't take this lightly, and that we love you and that we honor you and that we are grateful to be co-creating this world of risk-taking, of boldness, and of deep truth living. We are grateful to be building that with each and every one of you. So let's pray. Almighty and ever-loving God, recognizing that we are here by divine appointment. This is no accident. And we celebrate the commitment of these new members. In joining Unity on the North Shore today, we see this beautiful, beautiful demonstration of divine love expressing through all of us. And we're lifted, each of us, even us old members, we're lifted in this moment. And we affirm that our new members, that their affiliation with this spiritual community will greatly be a blessing to each of them, but more importantly, to all of us. And so we hold that in our hearts and we say, Amen.
Amen. And so as a special welcome tribute, the new members, we have photographs of each of the new members, and they have selected a quote that either they find inspiring or it sort of expresses what their personal call is. And so as we play that slideshow with their quote, Summer's going to serenade us with her song, This Is Your Call.
You feel a burning in your chest. You know you're different than the rest. And sometimes it makes it feel like you could cry. When you're looking at the world through the heart that's on your sleeve, rather than your saline eyes. And sometimes it scares you to death. Sometimes it stops you in your tracks. Sometimes it makes it feel like you're pushing for nothing. But then everything gets quiet and the world moves in slow motion. And that little voice inside you whispers, do something. This is your call. You're called to be the one. The one who will inspire. Climb mountains, start a fire that shines brighter than the sun. And you will not waver. You will stand tall. You will be brave. You're gonna be the difference between loving and resistance. So hear me when I say, you are able, you're willing, you're strong. And this is your call. Yes. This is your call. Yes. You hear the thunder in your voice. You know you have no other choice but to open up your mouth and just let it fly. When you look down at your hands and you know the best laid plans are the ones that push you up from deep inside. And they'll try to make you believe that you cannot question what you see. That you should just lay low. But no one's ever sown a seed without breaking up the ground. And no one's ever made history by settling for status quo. This is your call. You're called to be the one. The one who will inspire. Climb mountains, start a fire that shines brighter than the sun. And you will not waver. You will stand tall. You will be brave. You're gonna be the difference between loving and resistance. So hear me when I say, you are able, you're willing, you're strong. This is your call. Yes. This is your call. Yes. So be the love, and love will be the change. The change you want to see. United we will stand, but divided we will fall. So I will stand with you till there's liberty and justice for all. This is your call. You're called to be the one. The one who will inspire. Climb mountains, start a fire that shines brighter than the sun. And you will not waver. You will stand tall. You will be brave.
Hey, thanks for watching this YouTube video. If Unity's message of positive spiritual living resonates with you, I hope you'll subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date on other lessons as we post them. Also, if you're able to support us financially in the work that we do in the world, Please check below for contact information. You can visit our website, find more about what programming we offer, as well as how to give. Blessings.